Hi, I'm Dr. Olga Pinkston, a board-certified rheumatologist and the host of the Mind Your Fibro podcast. This podcast is dedicated to fibromyalgia. I discuss up-to-date information about fibro, its treatment, the biology and psychology of the fibromyalgia. I cover the pain science education, the complementary and alternative methods available to you now to improve your symptoms. There are a lot of things that influence development of fibromyalgia, trigger fibro flares, and produce other symptoms like IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, depression, and anxiety, and none of them are your fault. In the Mind Your Fibro podcast, you will learn how and why fibro develops, how chronic pain changes your brain, and most importantly, that you're not alone in the struggle, that fibro is real, and how to not let fibro control your life. This podcast provides information only and does not provide any medical or psychological services or advice. Well, welcome back to Mind Your Fibro podcast, episode 27. Today we continue talking about physical activity and exercise, but it is a special episode. I am super excited to have my first ever podcast guest, and our conversation was so good, I could not stop asking her questions. So today is part one of my conversation with Lauren Eirk. We're talking about exercise, its importance, how to start if you never exercised or have not exercised in a long time, how to get your motivation to move, body image, weight loss, what to do for physical activity if you have chronic pain or condition like fibromyalgia. My guest is my dear friend, Lauren Eirk, who's a local Louisvillian. She's the owner of Fitness Integrated Science, a personal training studio in Louisville, Kentucky, where she offers muscle activation technique, MIT, yoga therapy, Pilates, and personal training services. She holds a bachelor's degree in physical therapy and master's degree in health fitness management. She's a registered yoga instructor and certified yoga therapist and master level MIT specialist. Lauren's training has made her highly sensitive to clients with complex ongoing neuromuscular issues, helping them with chronic pain, injury, weight loss, improving their strength and mobility and fatigue in her studio as well as through her app, Fitness Integrated Science TV, which is an on-demand education and coaching service you can stream to your home on your computer, TV, phone, or tablet. You will have the link to her bio as well as her website and app in the show notes. She is truly not only a fitness enthusiast, but an expert, and we're all going to learn so much from our discussion. So welcome, Lauren. I'm so happy to have you on my show. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and expertise.
Well, Dr. Pinkston, thank you so much for having me. I have admired you for years and your work with rheumatoid arthritis as well as fibromyalgia, and I'm so honored to be here.
Well, let's start our discussion about why do we doctors tell patients to eat well and exercise? Why is exercise so essential for health, and what is your take on it?
We have many, many joints all over our body. They are the meeting place between our bones, and those joints move with muscle. Muscle connects bone to bone and holds bone still. When we don't move, our joints, one of my instructors used to tell me, when we don't move, we die. The joints die. Bones lose density, muscles become weak, and joints actually become more and more arthritic, which is, I know, your specialty. We are designed to move. When we don't move, this affects all of the systems of our body. It affects our respiratory system. It affects our endocrine system. Certainly affects our circulatory system, our skeletal muscular system, our nervous system. Doesn't function as efficiently when we become sedentary and we don't move. There's a reason why when people are in the hospital and they're bedridden, that they have to be flipped over and turned a million times, because gravity, which is a force that plays against us all day long, definitely has its effects on our body. And when we don't move, gravity wins. And that's something that we want to fight throughout our life. Over 40% of our tissue is muscle. And when we don't use muscle, very bad things begin to happen. When people start becoming stiff and they don't move, this is when they do develop those symptoms like chronic pain, tightness, compensated motion. People even suffered from depression and all the other debilitating after effects of stress. So the idea becomes, and the focus of my work has absolutely been, how do I manage stress? You know, stress can come from emotional, it can come from physical stress, and it becomes from chemical stresses. And without stress, you know, we don't have change. We don't have the ability to keep ourselves strong and healthy. But when we have too much stress, it can break us down. We have too little stress, it can actually break us down just as much. So as I'm sure you tell all your patients, you know, exercise, nutrition, managing a lot of your emotional stress, getting enough sleep and getting enough hydration should be something that all of us are dealing with our entire life, and trying to find that delicate balance between all of those paradigms.
Absolutely. I tell my patients there's a trilogy of health: nutrition, sleep, and exercise. And even if you don't have any painful conditions, it is still essential to participate in them. Now, I have many patients who have chronic fatigue, they have pain, but they also have depression, anxiety. And many of my patients want to exercise, but they have the fear of starting to exercise. They have fear of anticipation of pain, anticipation of fatigue. And I see two categories of patients. One patient may want to move, but so afraid, he shuts it out of his mind. He doesn't think about it. He ignores any possibility of exercise. And the other patient, she may want to exercise, but she over-research. She can't start. She develops a research pattern of finding things to do, buying a treadmill, joining a membership, but she can't actually start exercising. I was in that category a long time ago. I bought a treadmill, gym membership, but never started exercising. So how do you advise clients like those who are fearful of starting, who don't know where to start? How do you start changing the mindset about exercising?
That's a really good question. And I think this is very, very important to begin the mindset before we ever set forth in a gym or buy a piece of exercise equipment. I think it's really important for people to dig down deep and figure out, why is it that this causes so much fear and anxiety in me? Many times for the people that I've worked with, it's something that maybe happened to them in their life. Maybe they started an exercise program, they have an overzealous trainer, or maybe they started something that was way inappropriate for their current level of fitness. And it made them feel either that they were sore or they felt that they were unsuccessful. I mean, I'm certainly one of those people. I can remember being a little girl and growing up and having to go out in recess and feeling like I wasn't as athletic as some of my friends. I felt like having to be forced to play these dodgeball games and kickball games, and people trying to decide who was going to be on their team and being one of the last people to get picked on that team. It really starts to change our views of exercise. And when we don't like to do something, we will avoid it at all costs. We will find every excuse in the book not to do it. By the same token, when someone wants to do something, they will find every excuse in the book to do it. So the idea becomes, what is it in myself that makes me feel like I'm not going to be successful at this thing? What makes me feel so fearful about exercise? And these are thoughts I think that you have to have and really have good conversations with yourself as you're getting ready to exercise. People, before they ever set foot in a gym, the morning that they're going to go and do this exercise thing, they're already thinking of these thoughts of, this is going to be bad. I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to be able to get through it. These exercises are going to be things that I'm not going to be able to do with my body. I'm going to feel stupid. I'm going to be sore the next day. What if this injury that I have starts coming back? Or what if I break? Or what if I pull a muscle? All of those things have not even happened yet, and we're already talking ourselves out of it. So we have to sort of figure out a morning routine or some sort of a routine where we can stop these anxiety-filled talk. And what I always say to my clients is, let's do something today that we know that we can feel successful in. I know you and I have had lots of conversations where I know you said that you'll tell your patients something like, get up and go to your mailbox and then go sit back down and then do it again. That's an awesome example of something that you do every day that moves. A lot of times I'll tell my clients, just push down into the bottom of your chair and notice your shoulders and your core beginning to engage just by doing that. And then let go and see how you feel when your muscles are engaged and you now have better posture. So I think that there's a definite mindset in the exercise industry that exercise is for fit people. And many things that you see in marketing, look at a Peloton commercial. What do you see? You see skinny people on a bike, riding really fast, hooping and hollering. And it seems like there's this big culture of people that a lot of other individuals don't fit into. It's kind of like going back into school again and feeling like you don't fit in with a group of people that you just don't identify with. So find people that you do identify with. Find a trainer that actually meets you where you are instead of tries to push you into a category that you maybe don't want or maybe is way down the road and isn't really appropriate. If you're at a scale of 1 to 100, if your fitness level is, let's say it's at a 5, your exercise doesn't need to start at a 50. Your exercise might need to start at a 5.5 or a 6. And maybe if you've not done any exercise, I know we've all heard this thing, 20 minutes. You have to do, that was the whole Kenneth Cooper thing. You have to get your heart rate up for 20 minutes. And otherwise there's zero benefit. Not true. If you've done zero exercise, 5 minutes is a start. Sometimes when people are having issues with chronic pain, breathing, learning how to breathe is a start. Learning how to meditate is a start. Learning how to get your mind right is a start. Just a very little bit amount of exercise to where you feel like, oh, I did that and I actually feel okay. I actually accomplished that. You've got to build that self-esteem, and nobody can build it but you. You've got to put yourself at the forefront of your day. So if you value not being in pain, if that's a value for you, which I think it is for a lot of people, exercise has to play a part in accomplishing that value. If you value having social relationships, if you value having healthy organs, if you value being independent, then you have to figure out a plan by which to bring that about. So if your previous exercise experiences were negative, definitely find your physician, get a good bill of health, know that you're safe to exercise, and then do your due diligence to look around your community and figure out someone that can actually help you. Find a friend that may support you along the way, maybe your family, your spouse, and start slow. Start with little baby steps that progress over time so that you can start developing a habit. Anything that you do along an ongoing thing is going to be a little uncomfortable in the beginning as you're starting to form that habit. But as you continue to do it and you wake up the next day, you're like, oh my gosh, I did this thing and I'm not sore. Wow. It'll make you want to do it again. But you got to want to do it. I always tell people the big thing that you have to think to yourself, you got to want to do it. You got to want to.
Yes, absolutely. So what if my patient who was deconditioned and she started exercising and she started very slow and she still wakes up and she is sore? She may have fibromyalgia and she'll have pain all over and she may have soreness from the exercise. How does she know? Is it a fibro flare with pain all over, or is it appropriate soreness from exercise? Because exercise and soreness kind of go hand in hand, but it's not a death sentence. It's not an injury most of the time.
Yes, ma'am. I hear you on that. And there is an idea out there that if I'm not sore the next day, that I didn't accomplish something. That's one sort of perspective that's out there. And then there's a whole other perspective is, every time I exercise, I'm sore and I don't want to be sore. So this idea of muscle soreness and where it comes from is a very long topic. It's a very researched topic. One thing that I tell my clients on a regular basis, You don't want to exercise with the goal of being sore. Being sore does not mean that you accomplish something. Sometimes being sore is an inflammatory response. However, what I've noticed in my work, and I know Dr. Pinkston, you are in fact the expert in this field, but what I have noticed with my clients being a muscle activation technique certified specialist, many of the patients that I've seen that have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia and these other chronic pain issues like lupus, those types of things, rheumatoid arthritis, they seem to have one theme, and that is what I call global weakness. In other words, muscles that cross more than one area of the body, like maybe they cross trunk and spine and hip, or hip, knee, and ankle, where they cross multiple joints. You will see bilateral or both sides of the body where these muscles are actually testing weak. They're not getting a lot of neural input. They're not able to contract in response to the stressors of their environment. So if you're dealing with someone with a lot of weakness in their body, maybe they haven't exercised in a long time, a certain amount of soreness may be a part of the beginning of their exercise program. Soreness in itself is not always a bad thing. There seems to be a huge correlation between muscle function or motor function and pain. Many times when muscles are weaker, they're going to have more pain involved. Remember that pain is actually a protective mechanism telling you it's there to protect you. So like when I sign with a client and maybe they haven't exercised in a long time and they have huge anxieties about moving and about exercise and what they're going to feel like the next day, I look at every single session that I have with that client as an opportunity to learn about this person and what they can tolerate. So there's going to be this situation where you're going to have to measure exercise according to your experience. So let's say I had this one client, I don't want to go into a long-winded speech here, but I had one client who said that to me. He said, Lauren, every time I've gotten a trainer, I'm so sore the next day, I can barely move. And he walked into my office with this really negative attitude. And so I thought to myself, okay, I'm not going to do very much with him. I'm going to just have him doing some standing, some sitting, a push and pull exercise. We literally worked out 10 minutes. And I thought to myself, there's no way that he can be sore. Because in my mind, that was so far down with what I'm used to doing with people. Wouldn't you know it, the next time I got with him, he said, I was so sore I couldn't even move. And I was like, that made you sore? Well, that was a really good learning experience for me. So I think, exercise looks different for everyone. Don't be afraid if you've had that experience when you were sore to go back and try again, because that experience that you had, if you communicate that with your trainer and give them a chance to adjust, then you know what to do the next time. You sort of figure out, okay, when I do this thing, this made me sore, but when I do these things, they made me feel really good. So when you feel sore the next day, that's an opportunity to learn about where your weaknesses truly lie so that you can now work with them. Maybe you have to adjust the force that you're using. Maybe you have to adjust the range of motion that you're using. Maybe you have to adjust the duration of how long you exercised. You have to figure out that perfect sweet spot to where you can naturally progress to where you can do more and experience less soreness.
It's so true. But when you touched on muscle weakness, you were talking about deconditioning weakness. You were not talking about neurologic disorder weakness. You were not talking about spinal cord injuries or weakness from a condition. You see global weakness in the muscles in the body from being deconditioned, right?
Yes, I think that is one part of being weak in the muscular system. And to your point, I think there's also weakness that can be caused just from the central nervous system, from previous injury. I mean, when you take someone, I know for myself, I've had 2 pretty big knee surgeries. And after one of my second knee surgeries, I remember I was a fit person, had my knee surgery. When I got home, I could not engage my quadricep at all, no matter what I did for weeks. And that was an experience of not being able to climb up the steps, not being able to walk down the steps. And this is from someone who used to teach 2 and 3 step classes a day, and I couldn't walk down my steps. So the moment that you experience an injury or surgery or some sort of neurological episode, muscles can go weak, just like your lights can go out in a light storm. They can go weak immediately. And I think that your muscles do turn off and turn on throughout the day, depending on what you've experienced. But the problem with deconditioning, like you mentioned, is that let's say that somebody does have an initial injury. They have a hip replacement, or they, tear something in their back. They have a muscle tear. They tear a hamstring or something like that. The longer that goes untreated, and the longer this person neglects to deal with that injury properly, what ends up happening as a result, maybe initially the nervous system shut it down, but over time now I experience atrophy and deconditioning. And that becomes a double-fold issue, where I get a lot of clients in that. So now it becomes, not only do I have to reintroduce this muscle to the central nervous system, now I've got a lot of other joints around it that have also become deconditioned as a result of not using it. And this is where I believe a lot of people end up with these chronic pain syndromes that you deal with on a regular basis.
I see many patients who have painful conditions. Obviously, they have arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, or they have neck or lower back arthritis, bulging disc or knee or hip osteoarthritis. And research shows that these conditions benefit from exercise and their pain improves. But I often hear patients tell me, well, how can I exercise if even a trip to a grocery store will cause me pain in my back and my knee and my hip? What do you offer to patients with these kind of arthritic conditions who have pain with movement, who are obviously will benefit from movement, but they just don't know what kind of therapy is available to them because of their pain?
Right. That's so true. And, so many times, think about going to the doctor. Let's talk about this whole idea of going to the grocery. That's actually a lot, because you're sitting in your car for 15 minutes. You get out of your car, you're walking across pavement, you're walking into a store full of concrete tile. You're pushing a cart that continues to get heavier. You're doing lots of repetition of gait over and over. For most grocery trips are no less than 20 minutes, if not more. You're standing in line, you're unloading your groceries, you're loading your groceries. Going to the grocery can be a very traumatic event. Going outside and mowing your lawn can be very difficult. Cleaning your house, climbing upstairs can be very difficult. But a lot of times when I work with a client, I think that there's a very important aspect of whatever is weak in your body. Let's say it's a hip. If your hip is weak and it's weak in a specific area, because our nervous system is so well equipped to compensate, that hip weakness will translate into the other side. It'll translate into the back. It'll translate into the shoulder. It'll translate down to the foot and ankle. So I know for me, I've got being an MAT and a yoga therapist, I actually have the tools to evaluate clients to where I can tell them exactly where their weaknesses are. But many times it's the things that we avoid, the movements that we don't want to do. Like, it hurts when I raise my arm. It hurts when I lift my leg. It hurts when I sit. It hurts when I stand after sitting periods of time. What happens is we avoid those things. And it's the things that we avoid that actually break us down. So I think that your exercise should not be like a sport. Exercise, honestly, I know people always say, just start a walking program. It's the joint motions that we don't visit that are breaking down the entire system. So I think that we have to break it down between isolation and integration, something that I've done on my fitness app that you mentioned in your intro that I've had to learn the hard way. When I started, I put a lot of workouts on it. And now I've realized that I've included a lot of 10 to 15 minute videos that are just joint motions. Like today, we're just going to work on knee extension, meaning straightening your knee, and that's it. And what I've noticed is that clients that, for instance, have a difficult time walking through the grocery, when they improve their ability to straighten their knee, just the muscles that cross that one joint, they have this global effect where, because now that my knee is actually stronger, other joints that were actually making up for it don't have to do as much work, and now they're feeling better. So something that Arnold Schwarzenegger said, everyone knows him as the greatest bodybuilder, right? He says, train your weaknesses. You have to figure out where your weaknesses are and make them stronger so that it doesn't put stress on the whole system. It's impossible to find that when you're just walking because there's too many joints moving at one time. So it's about figuring out where your individual weaknesses are, making them stronger, and then slowly integrating them into the system. And it doesn't have to be 20 minutes. Exercise can be 5 minutes. Exercise can be 10 repetitions of something. Don't ever think that if I just work on this one tissue, that it's not going to make my back feel better. You know, your body is a system of joints that are made to work together. And if one joint is dysfunctional, all the other joints around it are going to have problems too.
So true. Well, let's kind of switch a little bit about patients that I also see in my clinic who many of them have fibromyalgia and may have arthritis, but they also have excess weight. Obesity and being overweight is an epidemic in our country and in the world. And many of my patients who come with chronic conditions, chronic pain, may be overweight, may have obesity. And they say their BMI or body mass index is over 30. And sometimes I see patients whose BMI is over 40 or higher. And there's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of worry about the body image that they experience. There's a lot of kind of self-hate, self-neglect, self-criticism that goes along with the body weight. And how do you deal with clients like that have the body image issues, who desperately need to move to improve the body image? And it will take many, many, many months to years sometimes to improve that physical appearance, and not just appearance, but their health. They may start very slow, and improving nutrition along with exercise is a long-term plan, but they need to start. And the mindset of that is so important. So how do you advise those clients who come to your practice?
You know, that's a topic that is a big problem. And I think that you touched on a lot of really important points. I remember years ago, I was the group fitness director in a local gym here. It's no longer around. It's called Louisville Athletic Club. And we had at that time tryouts for The Biggest Loser were being held at our facility. And so one morning when I was driving into work, wrapped around my building were people that were severely overweight, all trying to get on the show. And I remember I had an opportunity to talk to some of the producers of the show. And they asked me and another colleague of mine, Cody Eubank, who now works with me at Fitness Integrated Science, what we thought of their show. And I looked at him and I said, it's an abomination. And he just kind of looked at me. And I said, it's amazing to me that you take people that are over 100 pounds overweight and you scream at them while they run up and down the hill or do jumping jacks or try to do hours and hours of cardio. And he just kind of looked at me. And I said, I feel like I need to stand next to your auditions with my card and hand it out, because all of these people within a matter of weeks are all going to have bone issues, chronic pain. They're going to actually gain more weight when the show ends, and they're going to feel worse about themselves after this experience. And of course, he walked away, and then he didn't want to hear that. And I probably shouldn't have said it at the time, but I was like 25. So give me a break, right? So that was my ego at the time. But that experience has always stuck with me. When I was a teenager, I was an anorexic. I actually was hospitalized in high school for body image issues, which I believe is the same thing on a spectrum, whether you're losing weight for a problem or whether you have a problem with gaining weight. I understand that so deep in my heart about what it feels like to not love yourself, what it feels like to never feel good enough, what it feels like to not feel like you're never going to be a loving person or lovable person because you don't fit into what society says is okay. So first of all, I want to tell all your viewers, all of you are beautiful, and you have to really work hard on looking at yourself. It's like that Saturday Night Live skit. Remember the Stuart Smalley daily affirmations? Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. You've got to work really hard on being able to like yourself. Some people are designed to be heavier. Some people are designed to be lighter. Some people have long, skinny bones. Some people have short, fat bones. If you look at somebody's parents, you can kind of see how somebody is aging. You can see it in animals. I've got 3 cats and a dog. One of my cats, he doesn't have any issues with weight because he doesn't see social media. He just likes to eat and he will devour all the food. And I've got another cat that has no interest in eating ever. And this is exactly how people are, right? We have things that we enjoy, and a lot of people really enjoy eating. A lot of people can put on weight really fast. Some people can eat and eat and eat and eat, and they never gain weight. Some people are naturally athletic. Some people are naturally lethargic. You have to, first of all, embrace who you are. I had to embrace for myself. My best friend growing up was a Filipino who was a size 0. Well, my pelvis is never going to be a size 0. And believe me, I tried. I got down to 85 pounds was my lowest weight. And I'm 5'7". And I never was a size 0 because my pelvis couldn't fit into a size 0. So I've had to learn through many, many years of education in the health and fitness field, so many reasons why people are different. I could go on and on just about skeletal reasons why people are different. So being able to accept yourself for who you are is the first step. And whether that means, surrounding yourself with people that love you, going into a facility that you feel nurtured, going into a program that makes you feel accepted, whatever that is, you've got to find that. Don't sign up for something that makes you feel like you have to feel shame. Sign up for things that make you feel good about yourself. Being able to work on your self-esteem and your body image, just like you said, Dr. Pinkston, it is a long-term process. And if you try to go into the biggest loser mindset of I'm going to lose this weight in 6 weeks, you're going to fail. Many reasons that people become overweight this has become their way of life. And they don't know how to be anywhere else. You always have to ask yourself, what does being thin look like? What things are going to have to change in my life to accommodate a thinner me? What would it look like if people actually gave me a compliment about what I look like? What would it look like if I didn't use my weight as an excuse? What would it look like if I actually became active and didn't depend on people? What would it look like if I actually felt good about participating in sports? I might have to get up a little earlier. I might have to enjoy an activity. I might have to buy some new clothes. I might have to not depend on my family for things. So many times these psychological issues are at the root cause of why people don't want to exercise. But you just have to start. It's like when you step in front of a swimming pool and everyone's afraid to jump in for the first time because you know it's going to be cold. But what happens when you finally jump in? You're like, oh, okay, I'm used to the water now. And then you swim all day. And then you're like, this is great. Well, if you've never jumped in the water, if you never allow yourself to feel that initial cold, you can't enjoy a day of swimming. Exercise, there's a reason why some people, those annoying people, and I know that I've become one of those people in my family. Oh, Lauren has to exercise. She doesn't feel good. There's a reason why people love exercise. I'll just give you a spoiler alert. When you get into your body and when you start moving your body, you actually feel good. If I had to tell your viewers, the secret of exercise is that when you exercise the right way, it will actually make your pain go away. When you lose weight, you will actually have less load to lug around. You will actually feel lighter. There's a reason why pregnant women have back pain because they're holding a baby in front. Many people hold a baby 20 years and they never get rid of it because they hold all this extra weight on their body. Do you remember the Oprah Winfrey skit when she lost that weight and she rolled out 5 pounds of fat on her stage? Imagine you had 100 pounds of fat on your body, like that show, My 100-Pound Life. That is a psychological problem that we feel like we need to hold on to that. Getting rid of that is like taking rocks off of your back. You cannot climb to the top of the mountain and accomplish the goals that you have in your life if you're carrying around all this excess load. You've got to get yourself into the mindset of, I want to get rid of it. And then allow yourself to understand that it's going to take a long time and give yourself that time to change. If it takes you 2 years, well, what else are you going to do for the next 2 years? Might as well get started today, because if not now, when? And if not who? If not you, who? No one's going to do it for you. So find those people that are going to help you and learn to love yourself a little more.
Absolutely. It's so important. Many of patients who have fibromyalgia or chronic pain condition have very dysregulated nervous system. Many have history of trauma, abuse, life events that were very dramatic or traumatic. And for some of them, starting exercise is very triggering. Body image is very triggering. And often when we don't exercise, when we don't move, when we eat in excess, we're actually buffering our emotions. We're trying to not feel the emotions, and we use food or other activities like shopping, television watching, or something as a buffer to numb ourselves down, to not feel emotions. I know some people will also buffer using exercise, just like eating is a buffer, watching television is a buffer. How do you spot those people who use exercise as a buffer to not feel their emotions?
Well, Dr. Pinkston, that pretty much describes me as a teenager. I mean, I think whatever I was going through as a teenager, I was using exercise to escape all of it. We all have our drug, whether the drug is alcohol or whether it's food or whether it's, romantic things or whether it's, exercise. We all have that drug to keep us from feeling things. And so I do believe that there are times that a client needs to find a good therapist to work with, to really understand the psychological component of why they feel such an anxiety about exercise or about losing weight. I think that is extremely important to have someone that you can talk to that's licensed in that field that can help you to dive down into your family history and help you to uncover why you have those anxieties. But absolutely, I think that there's a huge trigger, as you said, that's a great word, that goes along with exercise. So, if for some people, maybe that trigger was an experience that they had in an exercise class when they felt like the most uncoordinated person in the room. And so from that point on, they hated exercise. I've been teaching fitness instructors now for over 30 years. I've been doing education workshops. And one question that I ask a lot of personal trainers when they're in my workshops, I'll say, how many of you have had a client for over a year? And many people will raise their hand. And then I'll ask, how many of you have had a client for over 5 years? A lot of hands go down. How many of you have had a client for over 10 years? A lot of hands go down. And then the ones that have their hands still up, I always ask them, what makes that client come back to you? Because a lot of the problem is the doctor or the physical therapist or the trainer or whomever that did too much with their client. And a lot of them will say things like, I actually developed a long-term relationship with this person where I created exercise in such a way where they knew that they couldn't recreate this on their own. There tends to be a much deeper reason why that person stuck with the program. So I'm not going to say that it's all the trainer's fault, because I think that's not the case either. I think it's a dual-fold thing. But you have to find something that works for you. And don't let one bad experience make you feel like everything is going to be that way. If you don't like yoga, try something different. If you don't like walking outside, if that causes you pain, try meditation, try Pilates, try, doing something online at home. If you don't like being in a gym, try something at home. If you feel like you're overwhelmed and you walk into a gym after a membership and all you see is a bunch of machines, sign up for a trainer that actually is qualified to help you, and don't give up. But I think that you need to have a team of people, a team of professionals, a nutritionist, a doctor like yourself, a good personal trainer, a therapist, and a lot of friends and family members that can help you get to the goals that you want to achieve. It is possible, but it's okay to need help.
Yes, absolutely. We need a tribe. a tribe of support.
Yes.
It's our village, right? We can't just be alone and expect greatness all the time, every day, so we need that support. We need that encouragement, and also love and acceptance. When we see coaches, life coaches, fitness coaches, doctors, physical therapists who are accepting you for all of you, for everything you have, you get better results, because the feeling of safety actually regulates your nervous system. It brings you out of this dysregulated nervous system state and provides regulation. So to regulate our nervous system, we need human connection, human touch, and conversation, and sometimes a hug, sometimes a push to exercise more. We'll all need this human interaction to succeed in wellness and healings. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, the best thing you can do is to share with someone and leave a review and rating. This helps me support more people just like you move toward better life with fibromyalgia. All you have to do is to go to the platform you're listening on, click the share button or the icon, and just send it to a friend. I so appreciate you taking your time to do so. Make sure you sign up or subscribe to this podcast so you can get the most up-to-date information in the new episodes. Thanks for joining me today, and I will see you next week. And don't forget to mind your fibro. Disclaimer: this podcast provides information only and does not provide any medical or psychological services or advice. None of the content on this podcast prevents, cures, or treats any medical or mental condition.